What is good, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Cyberpunk 2077. Thank you for shouting out on the community tab. I'm 25 hours into the game, and I asked you guys, do you want to hear some impressions? And you said yes, overwhelmingly. So here we are. Housekeeping first, there will be no spoilers in this video, and the footage is going to be from side quest content. Now, if you want absolutely no visual spoilers whatsoever, I recommend throwing me into another tab and listening to this video podcast style. Okay, before we get any further, I need to say this. If you only hear one thing from this video, this is for you. Don't buy Cyberpunk on PlayStation 4 or Xbox One. The base consoles right now are just, man, that version of the game is such a mess. The technical limitations, the lack of optimizations, it's a bad experience to the point where I think IGN gave them a 4 out of 10 for those base consoles and just said, look, this is otherwise a great RPG, but not on these systems. CD Projekt Red had to issue an apology and is offering refunds for them. So again, if you're somebody thinking about maybe buying this game for yourself or a relative or a friend for the holidays, hear me out. If they have a base PS4 or Xbox One, you need to be really careful if you're going to pick this thing up. And it's a real shame because throughout the last, 5-6 years, we've heard again and again that Cyberpunk will be one of these current gen titles, and it will, be fine to play it on either of these. And it's just not. That is just not true. I mean, PS4 and Xbox One, they had to have known that they're sort of a mess. And if you're living under a rock or haven't seen the memes, yeah, those console versions are kind of a mess. What about PC or next-gen consoles? So on the PC side, that's the footage you're seeing from me. I'm on a 1080 Ti and an i7 6700K, so sort of a few years older build. It's still running things nice, but I don't have ray tracing. I don't have a lot of the newest tech. Performance-wise, it's been pretty good, excluding a ton of bugs and just a ton of unoptimized problems within like the game's scripting or the way story triggers work. It's been pretty good on PC. So I can say if you've got a decent rig, PC is probably the only recommended route for playing this game right now from me to you. What about Series X or PS5? You can, and they certainly play far better than the base, PS4 or Xbox One. I have two friends who finished the game on PS5, and both had over 20 hard crashes in their 50 or 60 hours with the game. Now, that's unacceptable in my book because I believe part of the big benefit of buying one of those consoles is that standard certification process that sort of rules out a lot of these hard crashes. It may not be a deal breaker for you, but I do think it's unacceptable and really just shows what everybody has been saying this last couple of weeks, which is, hey, Cyberpunk needed another 6 months in the oven, maybe more, to iron these things out. Obviously, they pushed it for the holiday rush. And yeah, there are bugs aplenty. My impression's 25 hours in, and I'll hit on the marketing. I'm going to talk about, Night City. I'm going to talk about the writing of this game. But you need to know my frame of reference going in. I bought into the marketing hype, and this has easily been my most anticipated game of the last 3 years. Ever since they had that 40-minute gameplay trailer that came out in, I think, 2017 or 18, I truly believed that CD Projekt Red could deliver on the universe that the marketing talked about. And I think this is one of the best marketing hype generating campaigns ever in all of gaming. The narration and the way it was structured built into the player's head, thought process that anything was possible, and this was going to be an unprecedented level of choice from the player. The impact you could have on the story, the bounds of the world blurred. I truly thought this was going to be the next big leap in gaming. And at times, Cyberpunk can deliver on that ambitious vision. But for the majority of the time, it is overly ambitious and can't deliver on that. It's writing checks that it cannot cash and is painfully obvious where the edges of the video game simulation begin. And by that, I mean, you're continually reminded as soon as you get into the immersive side of, oh, this is a game, these are the rules of the game, these are the tools available to me, and I can only do X, Y, and Z. That's not to say it isn't a very impressive RPG. It is, but man, it's definitely been a sort of a disappointment roller coaster for me because I truly wanted and believed that this was going to be the next biggest leap in gaming. Is it impressive? Absolutely. But no, it's like Deus Ex had a baby with an Elder Scrolls game or a Fallout game. That's cool, and that's great. Let's talk about Night City real quick. Night City is an absolute marvel. It is the star of the game. It is densely packed and so full of great things to discover. The atmosphere is on point outside of the enemy AI, which is really lacking. The city is unbelievable. When you drive from one quest to another, I just lose track. I get pulled over. I go to a shop. I buy something here. Like, I wanted to just go to a bar nearby, and I discovered a whole secondary quest line that involved just, I don't want to go into it, but it was really cool. And that helps emphasize another point here. The side content is also the star of this game. If you are only trying to plow through the main story, you can get through it rather quickly. And in my mind, the main story has represented some of the weaker writing points and some of the weaker set pieces. The good news here is that the side content is indistinguishable from the main content for the most part. The characters that you meet and some of the steps that you go on are just as good as the main tightly polished stuff. That's really awesome. And so my pendulum has been swinging from super hyped evenings of playing it to kind of disappointed because, yeah, it's hard to know the level of choice that you're impacting in the world without save scumming or replaying the game once again. And I have looked up a few sort of outcomes that have occurred during my story playthrough going, if I had made this choice at this junction and this choice at this junction, what would have happened? Only to find out that the outcome was sort of determined already. And that's never a great feeling. Some of you old school Mass Effect fans may remember that, where the hype of some grand number of conclusions all being different based upon your choices along the way. Cyberpunk does have those, but it's not as grand as the marketing made it play out. It's like, well, why did I do these things at steps A, B, and C when I was always going to get at this outcome? Like, all roads ended up leading towards this exact space. Let's hit on probably one of the biggest obvious things. No game could have possibly lived up to the hype that was behind this game. I knew that, everybody knew that, but we also wanted to buy into the dream of it because CD Projekt Red after The Witcher 3 has been elevated into superstardom. And I enjoyed Witcher 3. I thought it was a great game. It wasn't something that I evangelized about to friends telling them you've got to play this thing, but I thought very, very highly of the quality of writing within that title. And this marketing campaign, I am telling you, is part of the problem here, because had they laid just a little bit lower and had they maybe not been as good at generating hype as that campaign was, and this thing just sort of released when it wanted to release, players would have been very pleasantly surprised going, what a great densely packed RPG with plenty of options and new levels of choice. But instead, I'm left sort of scratching my head after every single play session going, oh, this is kind of like playing Fallout with some Deus Ex mechanics. I see. Take away Night City as well when you venture out and do some quests outside of the city, and it becomes even more apparent just how heavily the game leans on its setting and Night City to succeed. The universe of Cyberpunk is super rich, and the biggest thing I was looking forward to was seeing how they were going to explore how technology interfaces with the human psyche. How does this abrupt, abrasive, futuristic world of brutality and violence impact the humans behind it? What are their thoughts, hopes, dreams, the ethics of it all? And there's only been a few moments in the writing where it actually digs in and pulls some really well-written Blade Runner-esque stuff. And then it just shifts its tone for the majority of the game back to, this is an ultra-brutal, violent world, deal with it, edgelord rocker, rah, 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 rah. And that is a huge bummer because there's so much nuance and epicness here, and I can't really talk about specifics because it would be story spoiling. But every time there's thought-provoking, intelligent writing that really pulls back the curtain into this world and asks the question, what are the impacts of such a society on humanity? Every time it gets there, it totally turns a 180 and then drives right back into the violent, loud music, deal with it, abrasiveness. And that's not very intelligent, and it's a little bit of a bummer because, gosh, that's what I was most looking forward to here. And Witcher 3's writing was very good and subverted expectations within the fantasy setting so well that, yeah, maybe I just don't align with V, the main character, and, you know, the prompts that I'm pressing don't always respond as well with what he's saying. But for me, there was a lot more potential here for nuanced, intelligent writing that just didn't deliver. Okay, so I've been complaining, right, for a little bit here and sharing with you guys some disappointments. What I'm not disappointed with at all is the city and is the side quest content. That to me is the absolute star of this game. Driving from point A to point B, it is impossible to get sidetracked, to not get sidetracked, I should say, in doing a new activity, stumbling into a new alley and finding a new NPC who puts you on a new quest line. They'll give you an upgrade over here. And combat-wise, I'm playing this thing out as stealthy as possible and as technologically as possible. There is some cool shooting. There is great weaponry. And to do it all within the first-person perspective, I think doesn't get enough attention. You are so up close to everything that the level of work that had to go into this game is sheerly, it's astounding, man. You have to appreciate from just the amount of assets that had to be created. It's overwhelming. You have to appreciate what they were trying to do. Part of me wishes, though, it was maybe a little less ambitious, a little more streamlined, and certainly give this game 6 months. We know CD Projekt Red has a patch coming in January and another patch coming in February, and this is something that will only get better as the year goes on. To round things out, if you want to play this like as just an FPS title and romp around blasting things, you can, but gunplay-wise, it doesn't feel phenomenal. I think that was sort of expected if you play many FPS RPG games. Would love to hear in the comments below if you've ever played one that had immaculate gameplay and it felt phenomenal. Because for me, FPS RPGs, I've never played one that fits like a glove and you're like, oh my goodness, this is like Doom. This is buttery. This is so smooth. So keep that in mind. At the end of the day, again, I'm intrigued. I want to keep playing. And I think people will be talking about Cyberpunk for years to come. From the marketing to the delivery to the delays, all these things, man, it paints a very interesting picture in gaming history. And I think marketing actually kind of bears a lot of the blame for this kind of backlash the game is getting. Marketing has to work in sync with the developers to communicate effectively with the players why they should buy the game, but also sort of to set the expectations accurately. They should win an award for the hype generating machine that they did. And of course, it wasn't going to live up to that hype. But I also think when you look at the base PS4 and Xbox One, there's some misleading stuff in that direction. All right, I've rambled a lot. Thanks for watching, you guys. I want to know what you think. I want to know your experience. What are you playing on? And how has it been so far? Again, please recognize and be sensitive to others that bugs are different for different people. So for the comments that go, I've had no bugs whatsoever, that is awesome. I'm very happy for you, but please do not invalidate other people's opinions who've experienced tons of bugs. It's different for everybody. So recognize that and help that in the opinion that you form. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching these videos. If you enjoy, if you want to hear more, maybe after I've put 50 hours into the game, please let me know in the comments down below. Always love you. Have a good rest of the week. I will see you again soon. And subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, do the YouTube stuff. We'll see you next time.